We're going to teach you how you can transfer a property to your purchaser once the property is settled. To do this, we'll go into the properties and we will look for my settled property. We can see we have 17 Malua Street in Dolls Point. If we go into this particular property, we can see in the life cycle, in the sales advice, that the property has settled today, the 7th of the 8th. We need to make sure that all of your information is filled in on the sales advice screen. So you want to have your under contract date, your exchanged or unconditional, who it was sold by, and definitely a settled date and your contract price. If you keep scrolling down, you have your sales deadlines, settlement and payment options, and your solicitors. Once you have all of this selected, hit the Update Sales Advice. Now on the right hand side of your screen, when the property status is settled or it is exchanged, you will see a Transfer Property option. This button will launch the Transfer Property tool. Before you launch this, make sure that you have your purchaser and your vendor linked to this particular property. To launch the Transfer Property tool, click the Transfer Property option. When the tool launches, you will see the workflow of what is going to happen. First of all, we have a series of options to select for our seller, then our purchaser, and it will move the property to them. On the right hand side of the screen, we see all of these options are currently set to on. At the top of the screen, we'll have our seller questions. We can click this up to see all of our purchaser questions. Start with your seller, and the first option will be to remove all uncompleted tasks against the property that they currently have sold. If you have a DNA plan set against the vendor and none of those items need to be completed anymore because the property has settled, you can leave this on. The next option will be assign your DNA plan. Now if you're using the Aaron Shiner DNA packs, this will be plan number 6.1, settled vendor. It will start this from the settled date on the property. You will then be asked if you wish to update the postal address of your vendor. For this example, they have sold 17 Malua Street and they're going to move down the road to 14 Malua Street in Dolls Point. The final thing in relation to your seller is you can update their tags. So here we can see I have them as buyer category hot. We have them as an investor, which we're going to remove, and we're going to keep them on our VIP list. You'll see a list of all of your client tags that you have in your account. If you wish to add them to any of these categories during this transfer process, simply select them for them to be added to your vendor. Now that you have all of your seller questions completed, you can now go into your purchaser questions. The first question of the purchaser is the most important, where it's going to transfer the property to your purchaser, set it as a potential, and have the selling agent as the assigned agent and the purchaser as the new vendor of that property. So we generally always leave this one ticked. And if you want to set a follow-up plan against your purchaser and their new property that they've purchased, you use the Select DNA Plan options, and again you will use the Aaron Shiner plans, 6.2 for a live-in purchaser or 6.3 for an investor purchaser. We're going to say that the purchaser is going to move into this property, so we're going to say it's a live-in purchaser and start it from the settled date. We then can add more tags to our purchaser. So if they were going to become a landlord, for example, if this was an investment property, I would want to put them in my landlord tag. For this example, they're not going to be a landlord, and we're going to leave them in our VIP list. We can see here, will the purchaser remain an active buyer? So the purchaser has actually found their dream home and they'll no longer be looking for more, so we're going to turn off their active buyer status. And the last one is, do we want to update the purchaser's postal address to be the property address that they have just purchased? So if it's not an investor and they're moving in, you want to leave this on. If it's an investor purchasing an investment property and they're not moving into it, you would turn that off. But for this example, it's staying on, they're moving in, and then the final step is to transfer the property to your purchaser. So by clicking the Transfer Property option, this will then start all of the process of doing every one of these items on the left-hand side of the screen for your seller and then your purchaser. And you will see these going through live as each particular step happens. When the transfer process is complete, you will see the Transfer Complete Congratulations message. The button at the bottom will be Go to New Property, which will open up your purchaser's new potential property, and you'll be able to check that all the information is correct and the DNA plans have been set.